As long as we have tolerance. I mean, I guess that would be the biggest thing. Not that I consider Calgary an intolerant place, but, and you probably would say it isn't at all, because you've been allowed to do the things you've done for 25 years.
I find Calgary very tolerant, yeah, very tolerant. Yeah.
And you've been allowed to be provocative, whatever that may be. And
tried.
Yeah, that's right. And I would agree with Lance that that is the dynamic tension that we need. When we have, you know, when we talk about the kinds of things that we like or don't like, and the things that we think are appropriate in a community versus things that aren't appropriate in a community. I mean, let's face it, an artist that does something that provokes controversy in a community for whatever reason, be it that the bylaw officer comes by and says, we don't like this, or the powers that be say that's not the kind of thing that we might want, like the meat dress, when you talk about, you know, things that have provoked controversy in Canada. That is good for an artist. That's good for art, because people are talking about it. So I think we need more of that in Calgary, actually.
It's good for artists, but it's good for the society too, for the community. You know, if you look at the history of art and culture through different civilizations, but if you look through the Occidental civilization, through Europe, for example, you will see great moment in the development of a culture, which are great moment of controversy. And sometimes between the status quo, and sure, in the same time, sometimes the status quo is also the status quo of a society who provide founding to the artist, you know, and the artist and the representation of the society. It's not bad, it's very healthy. And I could say to the government and to the philanthropists, don't be afraid by that, you know, because the great moment of the culture was this kind of opposition, you know, this kind of controversy. If you look at the 18th century in Europe, the situation between artists, philosopher, intellectual, and the power, and they were completely paid by the power to work. You know, Voltaire was working for the power, and Rousseau, and other people as philosophers, and artists too. They were working with this founding. At the same time, there were people who were able to say what was good or what was not, and also to produce works which were very controversial, you know. And it was useful for artists to be controversial too, you know. It's not necessary to agree with what we're doing, you know. But we need this dialogue, because if there is not this dialogue in a culture or between culture, it is, as I said, another world war. It is a war. There is no other solution. If there is no dialogue, there is confrontation. But sometimes culture in action, I make a distinction between culture in action and culture as education, you know, producing culture and educating through culture. And this culture in action sometimes is the only way to avoid the conflict.
I think that what you're talking about, that kind of controversy, that kind of dialogue it's important, you said, and it's necessary, and it's educational. But you know what? It's also more fun, right?
Sure.
You know, like really, yeah. We're in the arts, and our job is to engage. And if there isn't a sense of play at the base of that, somewhere in there, then it's not as entertaining, it's not as much fun, and I believe that it's not as effective.
No, it has to be entertaining. It is. Shakespeare was entertaining.
Yeah.
Another question?
Good evening. My name is Linda Bruce. I'm the mayor of the city of Airdrie. And earlier this evening in the panel discussion, there was some mention of leadership needed to be taken in the development of arts and culture, be it in Calgary or the Calgary region. And when I think about that, I guess as a politician, I often think about what is it that you are asking for in terms of leadership. If it's from a politician or a political level, then we deal with policy, and I'm not sure that art really develops well with policy hanging over it. So what is it that would be required to help encourage or develop art and culture in any community, and I can see the word already coming out. And and what is the leadership? Is it strictly money? Is that all it is? Or is there something else that really is required from leaders, and be it political or community leaders, that will help then develop the flourishment of arts, and of course then the cultural development that comes with that?
Who wants to? You've done a lot of thinking about this.
Yes, I have just now, actually. Well, I will start that. I have, the province is consulting on a provincial cultural policy, and some of us in the room, Michael, you may have been part of that, I believe, and I know some others in town have been interviewed about those things. But I must tell you that my view of political leadership and how to promote the arts is, in some ways, my view is that it involves several kinds of frameworks, not specific to the artwork, but specific to the kinds of conditions that allow creativity and innovation to flourish. One would be, clearly we need people educated and able to assimilate information and understand concepts and ideas and cultural information. I think that's just fundamental to a society that wishes to make the most of its citizens and give everybody the best life. So that's, I suppose, that even though I'm part of the post-secondary system, that's not what I meant, but clearly education, K-12 and post-secondary is critical for people to understand that. A second piece of framework, if I had to call it that, would be that we know that creativity flourishes when people connect. And all the evidence that we've learned about creativity and innovation is that. And so the question would be then, how can government or political leaders facilitate the connections between people and the ability of people to cooperate with each other and collaborate with each other? The third thing I would suggest is that government's got to get out of the way a little bit in terms of the artists. And by that I mean, artists create great communities. So if Airdrie, Linda, wants, and we've talked about this a little bit actually, wants to attract artists, or High River does, or any other community does, they got to make it attractive, appealing places for artists to exist. And so, can artists get into live workspaces? Can we have small theaters spring up? Those are the things that create community, and they are almost synergistic in terms of their effect on one another. So I think it's a big I think that government has to kind of provide a great blank canvas and then get out of the way a little bit.
But Lance, don't you think there has to be a seeding that goes on as well? I mean, without resources, it's pretty hard for people to do things. And I mean, it's coming a little bit.
Oh, yes.
But government has to show that at least it's on the radar screen, and they have to be talking about it, and then they have to put their money where their mouth is and say, we value this in a community. And I don't think, for the wealth that we have here, that we have done as good a job of that as we could have done.
I don't disagree with you one little bit, and I didn't mean to exclude that. I think I guess what I assume when I said those things is that we have to have a vision for what the meaning of life is in this place. And Excellency, you use the word meaning to refer to what artists do and what culture is about. That's how I always define it. It's about meaning and purpose. So leaders, political leaders, other kinds of leaders, have got to crystallize a vision for what is this experience of Calgary supposed to be for us. And then move on those things. I didn't say that. Thank you.
Non, I agree with that. Je pense que le rôle du politique, du politicien, est un rôle essentiel aujourd'hui dans la culture, parce qu'il doit prendre le rôle moral de protecteur des arts, de protecteur de la culture. C'est extrêmement important de faire en sorte que pour les politiciens, la culture soit une des priorités, avec, au même titre que l'environnement, au même titre que la santé, au même titre que le bien-être. Et ça n'est pas vraiment le cas pour le moment. Ça n'est pas vraiment le cas. Au niveau communautaire, comme au niveau national, comme au niveau international, il est fondamental de mettre la culture au premier plan, de façon à tenter d'éviter ce qui est actuellement une espèce de guerre des civilisations.